Exactly. I'd try it up there. Or at the casting pools. There was a number of expert fishermen there. Some of them were playing around with bamboo spey rods for fishing and trying it out on the Umpqua River in Oregon. The Umpqua is famous for very rocky cliffs near the shore, not allowing a lot of space for a backcast. So even back then in the late 70s, middle 70s, there were some Golden Gate Club members trying to do spey casting. So anyhow, all the tournament stuff has applied to one form of fishing or another over the years, and it's been a fun connection. And that's also what's led me to my career as a fishing rod designer for G. Loomis, having done spinning casting, bait casting, surf casting, fly casting, you know, the main styles of fishing that there are, and applying them to tournament casting helps me to the tournament has helped me to design better fishing rods to make it cast not just to hit a target, but for the variety of needs in a fishing situation. Not all rods have to be super stiff. Yes, for ultimate distance.
That's a great point.
For ultimate distance, if you can bend a stiffer lever, that stiffer lever unloading is going to go ahead and kick it out there with more speed, possibly for more distance. But that's not what all fishing is about. A lot of times fishing is a short distance cast. You want to feel the finesse of the rod loading and presenting, casting, mending, you know, any kind of casting, there is an ideal action for that application. And so what my job is to try to interpret what are the needs of the fishermen. We have, you know, skilled marketing people that go research and say, okay, we got a focus group of fishermen and guides and dealers and shop owners and everybody that we want to get their valued input, and then I try to translate that into the right action of the rods.
One of the things that we see happening in the industry today is, and this was true at the Fly Fishing Retailer Show last year when I attended, it's every company seems to be trying to outdo every other company with, this is the fastest rod ever made. It's so fast, no one can cast it. And I absolutely hear what you're saying in terms of fishing.
Right.
I've actually taken, in my own personal life, a step backwards, and I'm probably fishing with fiberglass 90% of the time because it's slow enough for me to use in that 35-foot wide creek where a 45 or 50-foot cast would be a monster for the most part. What's happening in the industry that's driving that, and how would you suggest the average angler select a rod? Where they go out there, they're reading the article, they're thinking, well, I need faster, the shop owner's telling me faster, the $700 rod, the one he wants to sell, is the fastest rod they make. How do we understand what the right action is for the average guy who doesn't have a coach?
Well, it's going to be tough, to be honest with you, because there is a lot of propaganda, faster is better, which I agree is not the case necessarily. But I think if I could lend a piece of advice is find what's comfortable for you. If you are a caster that you know that I cast with a lot of force and I want to go fast, faster, stiffer designs are good. If you fish in a really quiet, tranquil place and you're trying to just be as sneaky as possible, go the opposite, the slower, softer feeling rods. For the general application, you don't know if you're going to cast far, short, aggressive, delicate, you know, somewhere in the middle. Medium fast taper is what I recommend, and most of the rods that I design are in fly fishing are medium to medium fast. We have the specialty extra fast, but that's for the rare scenario where you want to aggressively cast with a lot of velocity and shoot the farthest distance. Distance doesn't have to be all about maximum line speed. From tournament casting, I know that distance is the result of mass and speed together to give you the distance. Subtract air resistance, air friction. So in fly casting, you can cast gently with an 8-weight and cast a lot farther than with a 4-weight maximum effort. Why should I put out all the force of my body into a 4-weight where I can use a 6 or a 7 line to get it done easily? So there's a balance point for every person in application. What rod, what line to match the conditions.
That really is a great segue, because that begs me to ask, what about the Pragliola grip, where their guys are now using 7 and 8 foot 3 weights, gripping down at the reel, developing incredible line speed, and at least according to a magazine that I just recently read, they're getting distances and casting flies that you would normally get with a 5 or 6 weight rod. I got to admit, my eyebrow went up immediately, and I thought, that sounds like too much work.
I had an encounter with those fellas from Italy showing us some of those really wild, fast maneuvers, and it was really an eye-opener for me. Let's just give it under the quotations, a flair, an Italian flair for style. And I think it's a very great style, and there's some applications that I don't know about. Why was it necessary? But there are probably occasions when it can be the best way. But for my own personal taste, a little slower line speed with a little heavier line, go instead of a 3-weight up to a 4 or 5, will make the job a lot easier.
Fantastic. When you're looking at setting up a rod, and we're talking about fishing now, not necessarily for tournament, one of the variables, at least that I've found, is rods tend to, based on a single individual's casting style, kind of lock in with a certain line. And a good example is I've got a very nice 8-foot fiberglass rod. It's actually a Browning Silaflex from the late 1970s. It's got a fantastic action. When I use a particular 7-weight line on it, it's magic. I can write my name in the sky with the loop. And it took me a while to figure out what line it was, because frankly, with a few other lines, it didn't feel so good. What's your reaction to that, especially with the new rods, and how would you, are there lines that you recommend for the G Loomis series that you think work well, and are there different manufacturers for each kind of a rod, or what's your take on matching that?
Well, for any given caster and situation, there's probably an ideal weight that matches the bending of the rod, how it wants to bend, whether it's a tip or a middle or a butt. There's a certain amount of weight that'll bend it to the comfort zone of the rod and to the comfort of the caster. It is entirely possible to take a rod that's rated for, say, size 7 and put a size 6 or a 5 on it and handle a lot of line. Maybe if you wanted to for show-off purposes, or you've got a wide open space and you're having a fun time throwing a long line. Or on the other side of the coin, if you're in close and you're looking to sneak underneath bushes, you might only be casting 15 to 20 feet of fly line. All of a sudden, instead of a 7, a 9-weight would even feel better at 15 feet. And there's tapers of lines that have concentrated weight a little closer to the tip of the line. There's new wide, fat tapers at the back end, like spay lines that are being compressed into various single-handed lines. There's just it's a way of translating the weight to where it's comfortable for each caster. There's a sliding scale in my mind. I talk about a short belly line to a medium to a long, and let's just say you decide that I like the rod to bend this far. Let's take an imaginary number of 300 grains. Okay, 300 grains bends that rod just right. Now you got to find a line that's 20 feet or 25 or 40 or 60 to suit your casting conditions. So there's probably an ideal weight that matches each caster for the way they cast and for how much distance on that rod.
So, if I can, what you're really saying then is, if the rod says it's a 6-weight, it ain't necessarily so. You need to know how you're going to fish it first.
Right.
And then pick the line that matches. Wow. I'm glad to actually have that on tape. Because believe it or not, that's such a hard thing, and I'm sure you run into this all the time. There are guys out there that will buy a rod, and it says this, and that's the line.
By and large, for the typical application for what a 9-foot 6-weight or whatever the rod's intended for, that's probably going to be an extremely good recommendation. But there are reasons to do different things, so you can definitely change around.
We could I could go on for this for hours, because there's so many questions I want to ask, and I know that our time is constrained, so I really want to thank you for taking the time tonight. This has been eye-opening, and hopefully I'll be able to meet up with you again at another tournament, and certainly we'll be looking for you at the events this week and getting some great footage.
Good, Joe. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you very much, Steve.